And the person who's going to give a brief introduction to the next session that we use to close out the day, Joan Buscaglia. She's a research chemist with the FBI laboratory, and Joanne has a ton of knowledge about a lot of these different systems, and it always amazed me when we were on our conference call. She's like, hey, do you know about this? You know about that? I'm like, I didn't know that. So it's great having her on any planning team. So if any of you guys are doing research out there and you need a little helpful advice, I guess Joanne could provide some of that if her boss says so. But anyway, Joanne?
Thanks, JP, and thank you to all of you for coming back for the last session of the day. I hope to keep it short and sweet. And as the moderator, I get to decide who gets what time, so I'm just going to take as much time as I like. Actually, I have this introduction is very brief, and I hope to keep it to 5 minutes or less, just to give you a little bit of background and feel for where we've come in the last 20 years or so in automated systems and quantitative analysis for handwriting comparisons, both from the forensic standpoint and a little bit from the biometric standpoint. And I will start, of course, any presentation for the federal government with my disclaimer, especially that we will be talking about commercial manufacturers. And so I just want to reiterate that any information that's provided is not an endorsement by the FBI or the U.S. government, and the views expressed are mine and mine alone, not to be considered those of the FBI. So why would we want to do quantitative analysis for forensic handwriting comparisons? I would say it was in the mid to late 1990s, prior to my joining the FBI laboratory, when the first Daubert challenges to forensic handwriting comparisons were first posed. And after I joined the FBI lab, I was given the task to address the scientific foundations for your discipline. Not being a forensic document examiner, although I do have an extensive forensic background, I am not a forensic document examiner. And so I took this as quite a challenge. I do a lot of statistical analysis and objective measurements in analytical chemistry type situations. So I thought, well, gee, if we can do that for chemistry, why don't we look at doing that for handwriting? So in the early 2003-2004 time frame, I started to take a look at the handwriting systems that were currently available for doing objective measurements in order to get data, large sets of data, so that we could do some statistical analysis to support the scientific foundation of what you all do. And I noted that there weren't that many systems out there that could measure quantitatively the features of handwriting. And much as the forensic document community has been awesome in volunteering for studies, there was no way that they were going to want to analyze the amounts of samples that we would like to take a look at. So we started to look at developing systems for doing quantitative analysis, and you'll hear about one of those today. The main thing is we need to be able to account for both the within and between writer variability. And that's where your field differs substantially from some of the other areas that we've looked at quantitatively. The within writer variation tends to be much larger because of things like physical environment and health, et cetera. So we had to tease out what was the unique part about the handwriting that was persistent, that did not vary with time and temperature and hunger and things like that, age and illness, and what persisted across the person's lifetime as well. So that is quite a challenge, and I think you'll see from the data, both presented from some of the work that I've collaborated on, as well as the work of the other presenters in the session, that there is something that we can tease out and measure in handwriting that will be able to support the scientific basis for these identifications. And luckily, that does address the NRC's 2009 recommendation for looking at handwriting. I think we have a big jump on some of the other disciplines in that we identified this deficiency, we'll say, in the literature, and we are addressing it. And so we have probably about 4 or 5 years worth of research that has gone on prior to the NRC's recommendation. So I think that you'll agree that we have quite a good foundation for further work in this area. So why automation? Well, you all know that an individual's handwriting has been used as a means of identification for over 150 years. But the automated identification and extraction and statistical analysis of the handwriting features is relatively recent development. And I say relatively because in about 1980 or so, the Bundeskriminalamt in Germany developed the FISH system, which is the Forensic Information System for Handwriting, again, as most of the document examiners are well aware. And that was really, to my knowledge, the first attempt at doing an automated analysis of handwriting. And there have been many improvements in computer technology since the time that FISH was written in the 80s. And then in the more recent years, we have a number of systems that have come online in, I would say, about the last 10 years or so that actually complement the FISH system, and they look at different feature sets. So that's quite interesting to look at the two compared to one another. And the automation is needed because we want to generate, as I said, these large amount of data, quantitative data that we can then assess statistically. But the side benefit is that the document community now will have a system or systems, depending upon what you choose to use, that would be similar to an APHIS system for latent print examiners. So while we started in the FBI lab, where we started this research looking at how could we address the scientific foundations through statistics, the side benefit was that a system was developed that can assist the document examiner in a new capability. And so operationally, we can use these systems to look at sorting through large numbers of handwritten pages, searching databases of reference writers if you have them. As an example is our bank robbery note file at the FBI laboratory, or anonymous letters, threatening letters. So trying to identify writers that you may not actually know the writer, but you may know that they've written documents in different cases that now you can relate. So seemingly unrelated cases connectivity can improve solvability. And with the increased throughput, you can have backlog reduction in your laboratories. So there are operational benefits as well as court acceptance benefits to this research. And as I said, the statistical support would be for the court acceptance. So what we're going to talk about today, I've listed a number of systems that we have either seen in the literature or been familiar with or had the ability to test. And as I said, first it was the FISH system. Unfortunately, no one was able to come and speak about the FISH system. But I'm going to ask Dr. Franke, who's going to talk about Wanda. Maybe she can say a few words in her presentation about FISH, because as you may guess, FISH is a follow-on of Wanda, from the fish called Wanda name. And then Flash ID is the system that the FBI laboratory has collaborated with George Mason and Gannett Technologies to develop. Cedar Fox and iFox, of course, is Dr. Shahari. Many are familiar with that work. Describe is a software package from Siemens, and we have someone here to speak about that as well. And then the SIFT algorithm is an algorithm that has been used in many different areas, and it has been researched for handwriting comparisons, and we'll have a talk about that. And I put others up there with a question mark as a call to anyone who has other systems that we're not familiar with to please reach out to us and let us know, because we certainly would like to test these systems and see how they perform relative to the same data set. So we can assess the error rates of the systems themselves, as well as the advances in the technology. They may be very complementary to one another, and so using multiple systems may give us even